Hi, I'm Sharon Carson of Sharon's Natural Gardens, and I wanted to share the way that I make wine here on my homestead. It began with picking wild berries for my grandfather on the farm, and he made homemade wine, and that's one of the things that he wanted to teach me the year that he died, and he died before he got to teach me. So following through on that tradition many, many years later, here I am making wine. So to Grandpa, you know, I'm finally doing it. Anyway, the way I make wine is much different than anything you can buy. And that's one of the benefits of making your own wine, is you can make it without any additives, any chemicals, using products that you grow yourself or harvest from the wild, and have very healing herbal and flower wines. It's a grand experimentation, so you will get all sorts of different results. No guarantees of success, so it's just like gardening, you know, sometimes you win and sometimes you lose, but you know, it's still very worthwhile to do as a basic byproduct of your gardening. Most of my wines, I'll extract the juice and can the juice, so I can grow my own juices and can them and put them up, so I don't need to buy juices. And then I take the pulp and make the wine with it. So that really is great. It's really a wonderful thing to give as gifts or to use in your cooking or whatever. So it's made with our own wild-caught sourdough yeast. The apple cider vinegar, which is one of the byproducts of making apple wine, is made with the sliced cucumbers and onions. So we will probably. But I like this little book because I can just open it up somewhere. You have another choice out of just randomly opening a prayer to thank us for the food, and that is to sing this little kindergarten biodynamic song. Maybe we could do both. Since we're on a biodynamic farm, I love that. I went to the National CSA conference, and they sang, the biodynamic folks in the Waldorf school sat at their own table, and there was hundreds and hundreds of people at this fancy resort, and all of a sudden there was this beautiful little song that burst out while they were saying the singing grace for the food. Okay, you want to hear it? Mm-hmm. I forced my kids to sing it. All right. Blessing on the blossom, blessing on the root, blessing on the leaf and stem, blessing on the fruit. Bless this food. Very simple. It sounds great when everybody sings it. You ready? Now you know how my kids feel.
I'll lip sync while you guys sing.
No. But I mean, it ends with fruit. And the fruit is the culmination of the plant, because that's what its reproductive organ. So when it makes its fruit, it's made its seed. So the connection between the fruit at the end is really appropriate, I think. So I just opened this randomly from somebody called Yang Lan. It's a Chinese or Asian name, I think. All right. With all of mankind toward the light, I shall raise the children high, high, laughing for joy to the sun. That's a cool one. Farmer Biodynamic Conference. I met him personally, and he's a really cool soul. But he started the first organic winery in California, and he's a biodynamic farmer. I don't know whether this wine is certified biodynamic, but we got a little taste of it. I know you said you didn't want much. Want to hand me your glass?
You know, I just want to taste.
Yeah, well,
I look for literature at least on.
I just want to thank Muse Studio for doing all the beautiful pottery to complete my collection of pottery that I inherited and collected all my life. They made the goblets and the bowls and the 2 end plates that match my set. So that's the excuse for this party.
Thank you, Muse Studio.
Yes. All right. Well, see, here's a really good book if you want to take a picture of it, of a book that you might want to look at. But like you said, you want to turn that around.
like you said, almost all the books have, you know, you must use this chemical-based thing or that for tannins and all this stuff. My grandfather never had any of that stuff. You know, we just picked blackberries and made, you know, for him, and they fermented, and I don't think he even had wine yeast. But you can get wine yeast at the local Eastern Shore beer and winemaking supply that I gave you the card for. And there's another book that I have here, let's see, somewhere. You know, you can go online and find books all over the place, but you're not here for that. You're here to learn directly. So the stinging nettle recipe was in this for the stinging nettle wine that we made. Yeah, and it's a beer or wine recipe. And
Who's that author?
the author is from England. Piers, Pierce Warren. And it's got everything for all the nettle benefits. It's a really incredible. And there's also one in here for nettle beer that uses nettle, dandelion, burdock, ginger, lemon, and yeah, for nettle beer. And most of those beers and stuff are ready to drink really quickly, you know. So anyway, so what I thought we would do is go out and pick some rhubarb and make some rhubarb wine. I got my first rhubarb by this couple that she used to be the president of the Delaware Herb Association, and her and her husband met when they were 16, got married, had kids and stuff, and their first bottle of wine was rhubarb wine. So they bought me, you know, 4 or 5 rhubarb plants, which I still have, and in trade for a gallon of rhubarb wine. So that's how it all started, was me trying to make them this memorial, you know, wedding anniversary rhubarb wine. So that strawberry rhubarb is a good example, and they pair so well together. But rhubarb wine by itself is really good too. And gooseberry wine is good. The 4-berry wine that you all liked, was gooseberries, strawberries, blackberry, and raspberry. And those are the 4 berries in that wine. And you can adjust how much sugar you use according to what your taste is. Step 1, make sure the vessel is clean. So I need to clean the vessel. Make sure it's really clean. Okay, clean inside and out. Hot soapy water, scrub it down so it's nice and clean. Okay, I'm not going to get into that in detail. Then you put the flowers or the fruit into either a gallon jug. That one will hold 2 gallons, or whatever amount that you think you want to make. Usually I make 1 to 2 gallons of flower wine in the spring, you know, when the flowers are blooming. That's usually the time when you make flower wine. You can make elderflower, you can make lilac, you can make dandelion wine, you can do rose petals and honeysuckle, whatever the kind of flowers you want to use. And then you add, usually it's about 2 pounds of sugar per gallon, but you might want to use more or less. This is, I don't understand how to use this stuff very well.
Hey
But
Sharon, are there any options other than regular cane sugar that you can use?
well, you can make meads. I always use cane sugar because cane sugar is not GMO. Anything that says regular sugar is most likely GMO because they use genetically modified sugar beets. If you are wealthy, can afford organic cane sugar, but I don't think they use anything on cane.
How about like
So-
brown sugar or maple
Brown
syrup?
sugar is the same thing. It's just regular white sugar. It's not any. There's brown sugar is just cane sugar. It's the same thing.
Right,
It's just got the molasses still in it.
Right. No,
So-
it's silly. Like just people who don't. The way they make cane sugar, they have to use like animal chars, and so people who are strictly vegan don't eat cane sugar. I'm sorry.
Well, I mean, you know, you do whatever you need to do and
No,
find
that's-
out whatever sweetener you want to use. They
Right.
do
That's why I'm asking.
They
can you
do
use other
sell-
sweeteners.
they do sell the stuff in brewery shops. Let's see.
You can use other. So you can use other sweeteners. And is it that same amount? Like
Now, there's this stuff. which is sold in brewery shops. And it's called Vitagrain, and it's called dextrose corn sugar. So it's corn sugar, but who knows if it's genetically modified or not. But they sell, it's from San Francisco. So you'd have to do the research. Let's see, high quality organic ingredients. So they have a good reputation with being organic. So I would suggest that you could check out that as an alternative to cane. But
Sharon, so if it's flowers, you're adding water, and if it's fruit, you're cooking it a little bit first? and
not
then putting it in?
necessarily.
Okay, so just
Not
throw it in the
necessarily.
jug with the sugar.
Well, in my personal thing that I do is I do various things. Like I'll make that 4-berry syrup with frozen fruit that I have tried to sell to people and then nobody would buy it. So at the end of the season, more berries are coming in. I'm taking all the berries out of the freezer, thawing them out, canning the juice, and then taking the berries and making the wine.
All right.
And then
Ah,
after
that's
the
good.
berries go through fermentation, that pulp gets fed to the chicken, so everything gets used. So I get fruit juices, and I get wine, and I get fermented drunk chickens.
I was gonna say that.
So you know, it all goes around.
They have a big party.
Yeah, it all goes around. So the same thing with the grapes, though. When I harvest my grapes, I will have white ones and I have red ones, and I harvest them all. And I don't stomp the grapes and do it like they do in Greece and other things, because I want grape juice. I want my own pure grape juice that I can can. And I can have my own juices, so I don't have to go buy orange juice from wherever or things shipped in from around the planet. I can have my own juices, which are fantastic. But that means it's your own food and not be dependent on stores. So that's the whole point of doing the wine, because it's healthy, except for the sugar, but you know, that converts to alcohol. So you just have to learn to not drink too much, you know. Eat well, drink a glass the end of the day after you've worked hard all day. So, you know, it's all good. And it's healing, and it's not got any chemicals used on it. You know exactly what's in it. So that's the deal, whether it's flowers or whatever. So, I mean, that's the principle, is you start with the flowers or the fruit. In this case, we had all these cherries, and I put tons of cherries. I made pies, I made jellies. I had frozen cherries for winter pies. And I still had cherries coming off the tree. So I said, wine. So we got a gallon and a half of cherry wine. And it actually usually gets better with age. I mean, these are all young wines that you tasted. But you do have the issue of they do become vinegar. And I have this apple cider vinegar that I made last year. In fact, I used it in the vinegar and onions that we had, and it's kind of interesting. And it's not the end of the world if you get vinegar, but that's basically what happens when you get a hole in your thing and you lose your natural.
You just need something that'll cover.
You want to.
Well, you
use. You got to release the.
On here.
So is the yeast that's causing the fermentation? Is it something you add, or is it already in there?
Oh, it's a natural process. It's a natural process.
So you don't need to add any yeast or.
Well, I add wine yeast.
You add one.
I add a specific wine yeast, and you can get the wine yeast from the wine shop, or you can go to Kraus. I keep trying to put the balloon back on it. Don't want to go on there. But you can go to Kraus, Kraus, online. It's just a wine and beer supply place, and it can tell you all the different yeast. I'll just put this one on for now. They tell you all the different yeast and what those different yeast, what kind of wine they'll make, because they'll make they can sell sweet or dry, champagne, whether they're for a white wine, a red wine. They have all these different nuances according to the kind of wine you want. And then you determine how much sugar. Where's the rest of the gear here?
Is there, does the yeast need to be in a ratio too, or does it matter how much?
Well,
yeast you
usually, yeah, one package of yeast will do 5 gallons of wine. So usually,
it's like a quarter teaspoon per gallon.
Yeah, it's about that, you know, it's about a teaspoon for 5 gallons in a packet. And so I usually just, you know, eyeball it and pour about a quarter into the gallon. And I usually use about 2 pounds of sugar per gallon. And then taste it. You know, there is a hydrometer. Valerie knows where to do with it.
It's right over there.
This little container is for pouring the wine into to test it. And for the amount of alcohol
Okay, that's.
in the must, and how much sugar to add, what you start with and what you end up with.
What is that called again?
A hydrometer.
Hydrometer.
Let me actually
At
wash
that point,
this
are you still adding the water?
up. A lot of these, that's incredible.
Yeah.
You must taste this. A tiny, tiny sip.
What is this one?
This is blackberry vinegar. Isn't that awesome?
It's good. Where's it? It's vinegar.
Isn't it delicious?
I'll smell it.
It is.
I
I can
think
smell it from
it's
here.
It's vinegar.
But
Make
see,
it good.
even if you
wanna smell it?
don't make wine, you can make awesome vinegar that you
Sorry,
can
Belle.
cook with, that you can cook with. And if this is a very weedy garden. This is gooseberry.
Okay.
This is gooseberry here. They have not produced any berries. What are you doing? There's this is the rhubarb. This is a bed of gooseberry, and I make wine with those too. But I pruned them way back because they were way up to here, and they didn't produce any fruit this year because I drastically pruned them. So what I do is pick the outer leaves of the rhubarb. This is pretty nasty, so I'm not going to use that one. And this rhubarb I've been regenerating, but I just take the leaves off completely and don't use that at all. See, this whole thing came up. But you don't want to get the center leaves, just the big outer leaves. You want to leave the center leaves.
Oh, are those the ones we transplanted?
No, I have a couple in pots. Yeah, you can hold them. Free to get out. Get out. You don't belong in here. This is probably enough for a gallon.
Cheryl very dutifully
Actually, I think what I would like to do,
cutting up the rhubarb.
I think I want to cook that
What did you cut off? Just the very
with some
end?
sugar, and then add the yeast and do all that to it too.
Did you cut all that off?
I would do. Here. I would. I cut it like that.
Oh, okay.
So you just you don't want to waste anything.
Yeah, that's what I.
There's got to be more than one knife around here, right? Here's another one. I'm a stickler for not wasting nothing. So I'm thinking that the best thing to do is cook it down with some sugar and then let that cool. And then add the wine yeast and let it do its whole thing in one thing. That's what you do, isn't it? And then we can strain it out later. And then test it and add more sugar or not later.
But other things like berries or apples or peaches.
Yeah, I would,
those?
well, when I take the berries out of the freezer, the juice has already been extracted pretty much. I strain it out and then I make the wine with the pulp.
But you don't cook it.
No. Grapes I cook.
Oh, really?
I cook that to extract the juice because I don't freeze the grapes. So if you want I don't want to stomp them or whatever, or squeeze them out. So I just heat them a little bit. And then, then I strain them. And I can can the juice so I can have grape juice. Does that make sense? You were a fast worker.
Well, I figured I could cut them off faster if I use the board than I am.
Yep, absolutely.
Oh, it's that pie. I'm like, what am I smelling? It smells so good.
Yeah, we're going to let it cool off so it doesn't burn. And then I'm going to take this hot and we're gonna.
You know, like my boyfriend's
What I'm
garden
gonna
is
do
like
is put them in a pot.
you know when your property is so
We're
small.
cooking the rhubarb
Well, we're adding more 2 pounds of cane sugar
that you added.
that I added to the rhubarb, and I'm gonna add a little more water as well.
Okay.
This is basically to break down the fibers and mix the sugar in with the fruit, and then we're going to let it all ferment together, and when it cools off we'll add the wine yeast, and I'll go get the wine yeast now. And it was such the old wine yeast that I have, and they don't tell you what they're for, so I have no idea what to use, except for this is for a white, and this one is, I mean, I could go look it up online, but I have one already open, which is a champagne yeast, which might be tempted to use, because a rhubarb would be a white wine and hopefully a little sweet. And that one already needs the rhubarb. This will cook until the rhubarb is soft and the sugar is dissolved, and then we'll put a yeast in here. I think we're going to use the only strain for Germanic aromatic white wines. We're going to try that one, and I guess we're going to use a quarter of it.
If you're using it in something that's not a grape, can you anticipate it? How, like if you know it would taste like a Riesling if it were a grape, how do you know what it's going to taste like with rhubarb?
Well, this doesn't say you have to use it for grapes.
Right. But if you can, like if you're gonna, when you're trying to pick which one you use,
The yeast is for the final product to be something like, I mean, they can make wine out of tomatoes.
right.
They can make wine out of all kinds of things. I mean, you got to go to that winemaking, beer making plastic bucket with a fermentation lock up here. It's got, you know, it's full of the 3-berry wine, so we'll get at least 5 gallons out of here. These are the rest of the berries here, and you can see how the pulp needs to be stirred every day or so. Just stir it up and make sure that it ferments for a week or 2. I added a little bit of sugar and a little bit of yeast to this already, but just a small amount to get things moving, make sure they're moving. This is the primary fermentation, and it doesn't necessarily need a fermentation lock. I'm just trying to keep the gnats out of it. Right? This is a wine or jelly making bag that you can buy at wine supply store, and it's nylon, so it won't break. It's much better than cheesecloth. But basically you'll take the must, that's what this is called. You must have the must, and put it into the bag and strain it all out. And then you take it up like this, you hang it up and let it drain, and then later on squeeze it out till you get as much out as you can possibly get out. That's the next step of winemaking. After it's done its primary fermentation for a week or 2, and then you'll do your hydrometer test, and you will add sugar and more wine yeast and put it in gallon jugs or back into another fermentation lock vessel. You can use a carboy, one of the plastic buckets, a big glass carboy, but that's the next step, is straining out the pulp, and I squeeze it all out and feed it to the chickens, and they love it. So that's that. Okay, this is the second wine that we made this spring, and this is honeysuckle rose. It's basically rose petals from our gardens and wild honeysuckle flowers that are harvested every day for up to a month. That's the system you also use for making dandelion wine. You harvest the flowers every single morning and then pull the petals off of the green part, so you only have petals. And that's how the wine is made. It's absolutely sacred, nourishing, yummy stuff. Honeysuckle rose for your sweetheart. This is the third wine we made this spring. This is cherry from our sour cherry tree. Just absolutely delicious dessert wine. Wonderful sweet and wonderful flavor. Yummy. There you go. There's the rest for the filmmaker. All right. It's still cloudy and it's still settling, and it'll settle more. And it's still even working a little bit. It's not finished working. It's also yummy. Okay. The strain of yeast that we used on the rhubarb wine is AW4, the only strain for Germanic aromatic white wines. So that's what this one is, and it's tasty so far. Come by Christmas if you want to taste. All right, this is the 4-berry wine. You can see if you can see the beautiful color. See the beautiful, beautiful color. It's ruby. I lost a whole bunch of stuff in my freezer because it thawed out during the power outage. So I had about $400 worth of frozen fruit in there. So what I did was I'm making 6 gallons of wine, and I also canned 7 quarts of juice from these berry wines. So I can make my own juice. I like to mix it with apple and grape juice so that I don't have to buy store-bought juices. So it's a side product of the wine, is the juice. And this has got strawberry, black raspberry, and blackberry in these jars. And it's a concentrate, very, very, very powerful.